So welcome everyone to our 11th AES speaker event. My name is Karin Szu and I will be today's host. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Chen Chien-Jen as our guest speaker. But before I properly introduce our guest and today's topic, please let me briefly say a few words about the Asian European Society Munich. So founded in 2019, the Asian European Society Munich provides a platform for students and young professionals to create cross-cultural connections. Our mission is to foster intercultural respect and understanding between Asia and Europe. In addition to our speaker series, we also organize a wide range of social events and corporate workshops. Originally, we started out as a student organization at the Technical University of Munich, but are slowly growing into a global community with members from different parts of the world. So, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, almost everything that we've taken for granted over the years is now being called into question. To help stop the spread of the virus, we needed to make radical changes in our daily lives, how we work, study, exercise, socialize, shop, manage our health, and take care of family members. As one of the first student initiatives in Munich that addresses the need for greater intercultural exchange, we not only believe that international cooperation is useful, but that it is indispensable in the global fight against COVID-19. Because when we work hand in hand, we can amplify our efforts and hopefully facilitate a sustainable recovery. For that, today we are turning to Taiwan, which has been praised for its early and effective handling of the outbreak. As life and work has remained normal over the past months, we can't help but ask what the key factors are that have contributed to Taiwan's victory in COVID-19 control. So we are thrilled to be able to speak with Dr. Chen Chien-Jen, the former Vice President of Taiwan, about the actions that Taiwan took to contain the spread of COVID-19. His dual role as a policymaker and epidemiologist brought him from behind the scenes to the very forefront of Taiwan's response to the crisis. Before we jump into today's topic, let me very briefly tell you about the structure of the session. Dr. Chen will start off by holding a keynote speech. Afterwards, we will continue with a moderated Q&A. And now I'd like to hand over to Dr. Chen. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and we look forward to hearing your insights.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karin. It is really my pleasure to share with you this Taiwan's successful response to COVID-19. And as of December 15th, in the whole world, there's over 72 million confirmed cases and over 1.6 million deaths, showing a case fatality rate of 2.3%. And in the United States, which was most severely affected country, there's over 60 million confirmed cases and over 0.6 million deaths, showing a case fatality rate of 1.8%. In Taiwan, with a population of 23.6 million, we have a total of 740 confirmed cases and only 7 deaths, showing a case fatality rate less than 1%. As you can see from on this slide, the COVID-19 instance and mortality rates per 100,000 population in the world, United States, and Taiwan. On December 15th, the instance rate in the whole world was 935 with a mortality rate of 21. And in the United States, the instance rate was 5,000 per 100,000 and with a mortality rate around 100 per 100,000. And in Taiwan, the instance rate was only 3.1 per 100,000 population and with a mortality rate of 0.03%. So in other words, our instance rate and mortality rate was around 2,000 to 3,000 of in the United States is around 2,000 to 3,000 higher than in Taiwan. And on this slide, it shows that COVID-19 affected almost all SDG in the world, including the no poverty, zero hungers, good health and well-being, and quality education, and so forth. I think that might be only two life below water or life on land was less affected by COVID-19. And according to this report of National Bureau of Economic Research in the United States, this slide shows that there's the mortality, COVID-19 mortality by GDP loss. And as you can see that among the all more than 30 countries, you can see that the higher the COVID-19 mortality rate, the higher the GDP loss. And there was an outlier in the world, that's Taiwan. Taiwan has the lowest COVID-19 mortality and was the only country with the positive economic growth in this year. And why there's a global failure in pandemic containment policy, I think that's many points that deserve further discussion. The first one is the inadequate contact tracing and tracking resulted in the outbreak and the city lockdown in Wuhan last December. And the second failure is the postponed announcement of the PHEIC, Public Health Emergency of International Concern from World Health Organization in January. And also, there's a delayed border control of passengers from epidemic area in February. And there's also insufficient track and trace system to identify close contact in many countries. A lot of countries practice city lockdown without promotion of personal hygiene, social distancing, and avoidance of large-scale gatherings. And many countries also practice mass screening, but there's no enforcement of 14 days isolation and quarantine. And also, there's a significant shortage and public buying or holding of PPE. And I think that also many countries have limited response to disinformation dissemination. And the professionalism and political neutrality was not respected in many countries too. And this slide shows there's the early timeline of COVID-19 in Wuhan. As you can see here, that in this December of 2019, there's already more than 30 cases in Wuhan, but they only took care of this severe cases hospitalized in the isolation room of the hospital or medical centers. They never do very good trace and tracking. So those with some milder symptom or sign or asymptomatic infected people, they are in the community to spread out the virus in the school, in the working place, or in the community. That's the reason why there's a larger scale outbreak in Wuhan and caused the lockdown of the Wuhan city. And in Taiwan, we were affected by SARS outbreak severely in year 2003. So after the SARS outbreak, we have carried out a reform of the epidemic prevention system in Taiwan. This includes the amendment of Communicable Control Act and relevant regulations. And we restructured our Ministry of Health and Taiwan CDC. And we authorized this Ministry of Health to designate a healthcare institution to function as responding or isolation hospitals. We also enhanced hospital infection control through accreditation. And also, we have standardized the procedures for communicable disease surveillance and reporting domestically and internationally. We optimized our border quarantine procedures, and we recruit and trained more infectious disease specialists in Taiwan CDC. We also established our National Health Command Center. And all these reforms are very important for our successful COVID-19 containment this year. And in Taiwan, we consider that there's several important principles for us to have a successful containment of COVID-19. This includes prudent action, rapid response, early deployment, and transparency. And as you can see on this slide, that as early as December 31st last year, we are aware there's atypical pneumonia cases in Wuhan. And we consider this is a very important event. So we immediately sent those emails to inform World Health Organization and China CDC. On the same day, we already started our onboard quarantine of all the passengers from Wuhan. And as you can see, in the early January of this year, we strengthened our case reporting system and also our hospital infection control system. We activate our advisory committee for atypical pneumonia, and we request to send two specialists to Wuhan to have an on-site visit. And we announced that's a travel alert for Wuhan. So Taiwan rapid response to all these events when we identify there's a cluster of atypical pneumonia cases. And as you can see, this is the email we send to World Health Organization. And we send this email to them and they say, okay, we receive it and we hear normal information from them. And as you can see that we classified this COVID-19 as this classified infectious diseases. It means that all the hospital has to report this infectious disease to our CDC. Otherwise, they will get a penalty. And also, we activate our Central Epidemic Command Center. And we have held this emergency meeting of our National Security Council by our President, Dr. Chen Chien-Jen. And until that's on January 30th, WHO finally announced that COVID-19 is a PHEIC. But at that time, there's more than 8,000 cases has been affected in 19 countries of 5 continents. So it's a delayed announcement of PHEIC. And in Taiwan, when we have the National Science Council and our president, Dr. Tsai, insists that we definitely have to carry out this COVID-19 containment and economic relief and stimulus through these actions of prudent action, rapid response, early deployment, transparency, and public trust and solidarity. For the rapid response to pandemic, we have no city lockdown in Taiwan, no mass screening, but we use a lot of smart technology to do COVID-19 containment. We have very prudent surveillance of pandemic status. We use this ICT and AI technology to do this surveillance of the pandemic in Taiwan and internationally. And we also announced this traveling alert as quickly as possible, use the cellular broadcast. And we have tightened up our border control using the e-quarantine system. And people, once they want to get into Taiwan, they can fill out their information as quickly as possible and then get the health check at this airport. And we have very conscious and very careful tracing of close contact of confirmed cases. And we use ICT and big data analysis technology to help us to do the tracing. And we enforce every close contact or inbound passenger to be home isolated or home quarantined for 14 days. And when they were isolation or under isolation or quarantine, and we use mobile phone to do this digital fencing tracking, and we also use a line bot system to help to provide this quarantined people to services or any kind of care they need. And we have a precision screening of suspects. with symptom and sign. And we also mobilized our healthcare system for isolation treatment. We mobilized more than 20,000 isolation room and 14,000 ventilators. Fortunately, we did not use some of them. And enhancement of hospital infection control using disinfection and delivery robots is also very important. And in Taiwan, among 740 cases, we have only 455 domestically infected people, and only 4 of them were infected at the hospital. So our hospital infection control basically is carried out quite successfully. And as you can see that we announced this on traveler notice 3, level 3 for Wuhan on this 21st of January, and we prohibit this Chinese inbound passenger from entering Taiwan on this 6th of February, and nationals of China, Hong Kong, and Macau are temporarily prohibited on the 11th of January. And there's foreign nationals are entering without a special permission on this on March 19. So our border control was quite rapid and quite stringent. And some people who want to get into Taiwan and the inbound passengers have to subject to quarantine. And this includes a health checkup before the boarding and have an onboard quarantine announcement. And then they will get this home quarantine notice. They fill out their information with regard to this contact or travel history, or that's classroom history or occupations through this app, and then get the fever screening and symptom check. And we did not send them to home, use this public transportation. We have designated taxi or rental cars to send them home or send them to the quarantine place. And they have to stay at home for quarantine for 14 days. And this slide shows that for the inbound travelers, they have to be quarantined at 14 days, and the close contact of confirmed cases were home isolated for 14 days. And we use electronic security monitoring system to track the location and health status of people subject to home quarantine and home isolation. And under this kind of very stringent system, most of the people, they complied to government regulation and restriction very well. And this slide shows the quarantine app we used for the entry. And then we used a special mobile phone and with the facial recognition, and any quarantined people or isolated people, they don't need to write anything. They just speak to this mobile phone, and it will fill up the forms automatically every day. If they did not answer the questions every day, then we send someone to their home or quarantine place to check whether this person is at home or not. And we have this digital fencing tracking system as well. And we use a lot of artificial intelligence and technology to help us to set up the platform, including the social distancing app, health report app, and SARS and COVID-2 classifier for this reading of chest X-ray and so forth. So this time we use a lot of modern technology. And of course, it is very difficult for people to be quarantined or isolated at home for 14 days. We definitely have to provide care and support services for them, including some meal delivery, garbage disposal, and settlements. And if they need to go to the hospital, and we send them to hospital using this ambulance, or we use this other kind of transportation vehicle. And if they will have to work and they were quarantined, then we also provide an epidemic compensation. And for those quarantined people or isolated people, we give them 1,000 NT dollars per day as a subsidy. And as you can see on this slide, in total, that's by November 30th, we have quarantined and isolated more than 400 13,000 people. But among these 413,000 people, most of them complied to the restriction very well. As you can see on this penalty number, that's only 1,144. In other words, only less than 0.3% of the quarantine or isolated people, they violated this governmental restriction. And 99.7% of them complied to this government regulation very well. So I always say that we have to thank these 413,000 people. They are really unsung hero in Taiwan. They sacrificed their 14 days of freedom, and then the people in Taiwan, 23 million people, can work normally, can go to school normally, and live normally. And as you can see, this slide that with regard to this early deployment of COVID-19 containment, our CECC, Central Epidemic Command Center, held daily press briefing to announce transportation information, transparent information, health education, and risk communication. And through this, we can resist disinformation attacks. And also, we try our best to provide adequate supplies of PPE and other medical materials through mass production and name-based e-rationing. And we also enforce personal hygiene, social distancing, and avoidance of large-scale gathering using online education and self-broadcast. And we also engaged in financial relief and economic stimulus using this e-allocation, using a good way to allocate this financial support to the family or to industry which need it. And also, we carry out international collaboration on the R&D of rapid diagnostic, antivirals, and vaccines. And as you can see on this slide, that at the very beginning of the outbreak in January, our daily production of face masks is only 1.8 million. And our government will requisition 73 factory and expand the 92 production line. And our production of face mask increased to 21 million in May, and Taiwan became the second largest manufacturing country of the face mask, just next to China. So since we already have, with regard to before we have adequate face mask, and we have to assure that everyone in Taiwan, no matter how rich they are or how poor they are, everyone can get a face mask at a reasonable price. So we use this name-based distribution system to assure that everyone in Taiwan can get face mask at a low price. And people can go to those pharmacies to purchase their face mask using our so-called health insurance card, NHI card, to do this kind of name-based distribution purchasing. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we also developed our face mask map. And so you can go to this the website, and the website will show you that which pharmacy still have face mask available. So it's trying to provide a convenient location for our citizens to purchase face mask. And when we have adequate face mask, we also donate more than 54 million masks to Europe, to USA, or our diplomatic allies, and more than 80 countries for their health care personnel and other people who are in urgent need of the face mask. And in Taiwan, we consider that personal health management is very important. Every citizen has to practice this personal hygiene, including the washing hand with soap frequently, put on your face mask if necessary. Don't go to this large gathering place, and so forth. And in Taiwan, it is a multicultural country, so we have this kind of advertisement not only in Chinese and in English. We also use 7 different languages for other migrant workers in Taiwan. And we have we use this mass media broadcasting and online education, and to teach our citizens what is the COVID-19 is and how to practice this personal hygiene, and then how to avoid this group gathering. And in our education program, we try to make it that's the so-called 3F. It's very fast. And the second is fair. Everyone can get the information. And the third is fun. Everybody consider that our announcement is very interesting and they can have a good impression of that. And I think this is very important. If you have very good public educational program, then it's easy for people to follow the regulation and the restriction set by the Taiwan CDC. I just mentioned that COVID-19 have a significant impact on the industry in Taiwan. A lot of shock industry here, including the transportation, tourism, physical entertainment, and physical retail, and also food and beverage. And their revenue decreased between 30 to 95%. So this industry definitely needed the governmental support, national support to this industry. And also there's a bonus industry, including the healthcare and epidemic prevention, and otaku economy becomes very important in this period of time. And in Taiwan, we found that COVID-19 accelerated the digital transformation in Taiwan. Our online consumption increased 1.8-fold during this epidemic period. And we provide financial relief to low-income families and damaged industries. This included the handicapped, the elderly, and low-income families. And we also issues stimulus and a voucher to promote domestic consumption. And according to this effort, we try to boost our economic activity and vitality. And we allocate 410 billion NT dollars for epidemic control, financial relief, and economic vitality, and also shift spending priorities to emergency measures, and also increase the government investment and procurement for expansion of domestic demand. And we help acceleration of foreign and private investment. And we try to maintain the foreign exchange market stability and stock market momentum. And we issue stimulus vouchers for each citizen to spur consumption. So for this outbreak control, containment is important, but another way that's also important is this economic vitality. Is also very important. And from this very beginning of the pandemic, the government has ensured that the public has the open access to COVID-19 information. Our Central Epidemic Command Center has held daily press briefing since January, and which generates accurate news across a broad spectrum of media outlets. So CECC quickly established its authority and earned the trust of the public. And public trust had a stabilizing influence on society, encouraging citizens to follow government guidelines, and also making the public less vulnerable to disinfection campaign. And it generates a virtuous cycle. The more public trust, the more people are willing to cooperate, and transparency and public trust and solidarity are the natural product of vibrant democracy of Taiwan. And we also share our experience with other countries. For instance, there's a BBC, or there's France 24, or CNN. We have this international interview, and we also share our experience with Johns Hopkins University, with Stanford University, and so forth. And I myself was also invited by this UK's Parliament to share our experiences and so forth. And as you can see that according to the Wild 25 in the United States, they identified several people who are making things better, including this, our President Chen Chien-Jen and our Minister Tang Feng and myself. But our President Tsai said that, oh no, it is not a trio. It is really the people in Taiwan, and solidarity is the key for the success of COVID-19 containment in our country. I totally agree with her that in Taiwan, we have 23 million unsung heroes, and they practice personal hygiene and social distancing and help us to contain the COVID-19 in Taiwan. However, there still remains challenges of COVID-19 in the future. I think that although we already have this vaccine, but an immunization program will take at least 6 months for the entire world to get this a good proportion of the people vaccinated. So in Taiwan, we consider that before all this public can get this immunization, we still have to engage in fall-winter COVID-19 prevention program. We urge them to remain to practice on good pandemic and that's pandemic containment and practice. And in Taiwan, we also engaged in post-COVID-19 economic development, and we consider that epidemic prevention technology will become a very important challenges for us in the future. So in the future, so we consider that precision containment of emerging infectious diseases is very important in Taiwan. And I won't go to the details of it, but we try our best to develop the new technology for strategic epidemic prevention. And we call this the zero-touch economy and zero-distance innovation. This including this telemedicine, healthcare, and how to do this disinfection, and how to rapidly identify this infectious agent and develop this rapid diagnostic therapy as well as vaccines. I think this infectious diseases respect no border, and no countries can fight the pandemic alone, and transparency and honesty are the best policy. So World Health Organization should play a better coordinating role with professionalism and political neutrality. And of course, we definitely request no health nationalism and no deglobalization. And we have to help each other through international collaboration. I think this is the key for the successful containment of the future pandemic. And finally, I would like to read a small phrase from this Pope Francis. He sent to all the festivals, Catholic festivals. He said that rivers do not drink their own water, trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other, no matter how difficult it is. Life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you. I think this is the essence that all the people in the world have to try their best. We have to try our best to help each other to contain the COVID-19 and prevent any other future pandemic. With that, I would like to conclude my talk here and to answer some questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Taiwan has done an exceptional job at combating COVID-19. And I just want to start off by congratulating you and everyone who has been involved behind the scenes for an incredible response to the pandemic. Now let me start on a personal note. You embrace a unique role as a political leader and epidemiologist. Can you tell us maybe a bit more about how your training in epidemiology equipped you to lead Taiwan's response to COVID-19?
Okay, well, I was graduate from this Johns Hopkins University. And when I was there, I learned a lot about the infectious disease and control. But the most important experience I had is during the SARS outbreak in year 2003. At the time, I was appointed as the health minister. And people always joke, say that I was the one who jumped into the volcano of the SARS outbreak in Taiwan. But unfortunately, I have the chance, and I found that if we want to do a very good pandemic containment, we definitely have to have evidence-based practice of this COVID-19, of this pandemic prevention. And so after the SARS, I just mentioned, we have reformed the entire pandemic prevention system in Taiwan. And my knowledge and experience learned from Johns Hopkins are very helpful to me to make a very good evidence-based decision-making with regard to this containment of the pandemic. But more importantly, I consider that any kind of pandemic, it damaged human life and also the economy. So both way are important. And so when I was the health minister, I request to have this authority to coordinate multi-ministerial collaboration, because there's an economy is important, transportation is important, and a lot of our ministry definitely have to co-op together, and then we can do a better containment of the outbreak and also the better economic stimulus. And thanks be to God that this time Taiwan have a very good COVID-19 containment and economic growth. And our President Tsai Ing-wen also practiced on her role very well. She respected professionalism. So our command center commanders, they are all professionals. And the second is politically neutral. In other words, in Taiwan, there's another ruling party and opposition party basically collaborate with each other quite well with regard to this outbreak control. So I think as an epidemiologist, I can practice quite well based on my knowledge and profession.
Yeah, it's great to see how your deep technical expertise in public health helped inform your decision-making while you were in political office. And I also think it's critical that scientific evidence supports government response when it comes to public health questions. So while Taiwan and many other Asian countries have persisted in their fight against the virus, growing pandemic fatigue in Europe has led to rather relaxed attitudes about social distancing that are complicating efforts to control a resurgence. So in your view, what are maybe some reasons that have led to more widespread acceptance of practices such as wearing masks in Taiwan?
I think that in order to lead this the public to practice good outbreak containment, I think that we need two things. One is, of course, is the carrots. If somebody who are quarantined or isolated, then you provide this support and care services to them, and they are much more willing to stay at home. And the second, of course, is the sticks. And if they did not follow the rule or the regulation, then they will got a penalty. But I think the most important that they have to differentiate between the carrots and stick. And the more important is that you have to let them know that if you protect yourself, you love yourself, then it means that you love each other, you protect each other too, the others too. So this kind of solidarity is very important. People always consider that we have to help each other. And when we have the SARS outbreak, or that's an H5N1 avian flu pandemic, and also the H1N1 pandemic of the in year 2009, people in Taiwan, we have some of the experience, and then we know that wearing face mask is very useful to control infectious disease. It's not only for COVID-19. For instance, this year, in the first 6 months of 2020, a lot of infectious disease, including the seasonal flu and this enterovirus infection, are all decreased significantly because people practice on washing hands with soap frequently, and that also there's major body temperatures, and if they will have fever and they stay at home, they won't go to school, and also keep social distancing. I think this we learned from our previous experience, and I also think that in Europe and this American countries, I think that they were not affected by SARS, so they are not so scared by this pandemic. But I think that a good educational program is very important. You have definitely to let the people know that these are very useful. Isolation, quarantine, testing, and social distancing, and personal hygiene. And you have to let them know, yes, all of these are important. And then people will follow the guidelines.
Yeah. So now building on what we just talked about, we can also observe cross-national differences in the degree of voluntary adoption of contact tracing technologies. And in your speech, you also mentioned that Taiwan implemented digital contact tracing. In Germany, similar efforts have shown a rather slow adoption of digital tools, due in part to data privacy concerns. So some of our participants today would like to know how government in Taiwan earned public trust when introducing these digital solutions.
I think this transparency is the most important. And in order to get this public trust, our central epidemic command centers, they from the very beginning, from the first day of this daily press conference, they let the people ask the mass media to news reporters ask a lot of questions. They answer all the questions and let everything's transparent and everybody have the access of the accurate information. And this kind of transparency is easily to get this public trust and no disinformation. And so people always try their best. Yes, maybe CCC is right. So they try to their best to follow. And they found that follow your guideline basically can contain this pandemic quite well. So and then they will have more trust to CCC. So it's a kind of virtuous cycle. If people have more trust, and then containment is much better. And I think this kind of a practice needs a very good professionalism. A scientific base is very important. You have to let the people know that all these regulations are following this good evidence-based decision. And of course, a lot of people debate about that. Oh, this is maybe a violation of human rights protection. So when we try to develop any kind of guidelines, our lawyer in the government have to check there's human rights protection related laws, and also there's personal information protection and so forth. And we try to limit it, the use of personal the information as less as possible, and to protect the privacy. And when we try to announce we are using this mobile phone information for quarantine, and we are not doing it secretly. We openly tell the people we are going to use this kind of technology to do this contact tracing, to do this quarantine tracing, and so forth. Then people know that, okay, government wants to do that to protect the public, but they will sacrifice some of the privacy. And we also guarantee that once this outbreak was under control, all the information we collected will be deleted, and there's no permanent storage of the information. You have to assure the public that we use this only when there was an outbreak. And then let them know that the private information will be deleted afterwards. And this kind of mutual trust is very important. That CCC and people have to trust each other. I think that we try our best to explain clearly to the people, to all the public in Taiwan, and every hour in this TV or in radio broadcasting, our CCC have a lot of educational series announced. So people here are used to this kind of very good government and public relation.
Yeah. So to sum up, maybe it seems that there are a wide range of factors, such as public willingness to comply with strict measures, education, culture and values that need to be considered when introducing containment measures. So we've talked about Taiwan's pandemic approach, but as you have said before, no country can fight against the virus alone. And I think a global health crisis like COVID-19 has spotlighted the need for international collaboration in both the public and private sectors to develop diagnostics, vaccines, and treatments. Earlier, you mentioned that Taiwan is actively cooperating with other countries around the world. Can you maybe talk a bit more about the various ways Taiwan is currently collaborating with the European Union? And we have also one participant who was asking if Taiwan is currently in communication with other governments.
Okay, well, basically, when at the beginning of this SARS outbreak, Taiwan and the United States signed a memorandum to collaborate on this R&D of PPEs and rapid diagnostic and this vaccine as well as therapies. And after we signed this kind of memorandum, then this we have agreement memorandum with this EU as a whole, and also with some of the European countries, including this UK and Germany, and also the France. So we have very good coordination, and our products about this rapid diagnostic has been used in this EU countries and also in other Southeast Asian countries. And Taiwan government is try its best to help. And we have, we always try our best to help other countries. As I just mentioned about this face mask donation, but in addition to that, also there's a PPE and rapid diagnostic. We also donated to other countries, and especially for the healthcare workers in need of this kind of PPE and pharmaceuticals. And this kind of collaboration is beyond this. You know that Taiwan do not have a lot of diplomatic allies. We have only 17, but we have no limitation of, for instance, for our donation, it's go to more than 80 countries in the world. So we try our best to show that Taiwan can help, and Taiwan is helping, and Taiwan is more than glad to work together with other countries to provide good pharmaceuticals. And for instance, recently, our development of vaccine is quite successful. And so we already have some Southeastern Asian countries have the purchase of purchase orders to our pharmaceutical vaccine companies in Taiwan. So as you can see that Taiwan is considering that although we are not a member of World Health Organization, but we try our best to be a very good global health and practitioner and to help each other. So we try our best to do that.
Yeah, wonderful. So with preparations for vaccine distribution already underway, a lot of us might be tempted to think that recovery will come quickly. But from your perspective, do you think the arrival of a vaccine will be enough to allow society to go back to normal in the near future?
I think that previous normal might not be good for the future. So the normality really depends on this and what we can learn from the outbreak. For instance, when there's a SARS outbreak, people in Taiwan, they don't consider wearing face mask is a good normal. But now it become a very good normal in 2020. So I think that maybe we have to learn from this and the COVID-19 pandemic, and then change some of our health behavior, such as the washing hand frequently, and that's keep social distancing to some extent, and also put on the face mask when you feel sick. I think this has to become a good habit in order to prevent not only COVID-19, also for other outbreak to come in the future. But still, I think that the vaccine definitely is the most important things to contain the COVID-19 for the time being. But I know that some of the countries, they are, especially this developing country, they need help from this developed country. And so I think there's vaccine nationalism definitely is not a good case. We definitely have to try to help each other. And I do believe that when most of the people, I would say that more than 50% of the people in the world were immunized, then we can contain COVID-19 very well in 2021. But it will take, I just mentioned that maybe at least a half year or even 1 year to reach this kind of a threshold of 50% of the people in the world, they will get immunized. However, I would like to also share with you some of this warning. It means that the COVID-19 virus, SARS-CoV-2, is also mutating very rapidly. So the vaccine, which is very effective for the year 2020 and 2021, may not be effective in year 2023 or 2025. The reason for that is virus will also find its own way out. So it will be mutated, and once it is mutated to some extent, then the current vaccine might not be protective for the future mutated virus. So we still have to keep that's a good technology for developing that's SARS virus and vaccine, and to prepare for the future. And this has to, it needs this collaboration of the academia and also the industry and also this government. We all have to try our best to keep this vaccine manufacturing capability as long as possible.
Yeah, it seems that even if vaccines are the road back to normality, there might still be hurdles ahead. So in recent years, and especially during this pandemic, we have seen growing vaccine hesitancy and also anti-vaccine movements, partly due to social media and misinformation. So one of our participants would like to know how government and researchers can address this issue.
Okay, I think that's vaccine resistance maybe due to this ignorant to this how effective is the vaccine, and maybe ignorant to this potential side effect of the vaccine. For instance, if we vaccinated more than 100,000 people, and 100,000 people generally in the usual days, and some of them will also develop some of this allergic reaction or something else. So when we identify some so-called person with adverse effect, we have to go under a very stringent investigation to see whether this adverse effect really comes from the immunization or not. And this information definitely had to be open, have to be transparent, and to let everybody know. And in Taiwan, we have so-called vaccine side effect and investigation council meeting, and this kind of council meeting will classify it. If this is really the adverse effect really resulting from this vaccine, then they will get compensation. There's a special so-called vaccine hazards compensation program in Taiwan. But I would say that according to this good practice of the FDA in the United States and also that's in EU countries and so forth. I think this the vaccines after the clinical trial phase 3 in this Germany, in UK and the United States, I trust that the FDA are making a very good decision, and people have to know that there's an immunization is not only to protect yourself. It's when I was vaccinated, I also won't be infected, and then I won't transmit the virus to others. So immunization is also a symbol of solidarity. I immunized myself and I protect others also. So this kind of education are very important for all the general public to know that. And I know some of this resistance comes from a religious group. And I think this the key opinion leaders of this religious group has to be communicated by this health personnel, and to let them know that immunization basically are good for the people and also good for these religious groups.
Yeah. All right, we've got one last question. So a lot of our participants today are students, and some of them may want to work in public health, public policy, or international policy. What advice would you have for those students based on your experiences in those areas?
Well, I would like to welcome all the students who want to be involved in the public policy and public health and so forth. I think this, I always share with my students when I was in this teaching in National Taiwan University Hospital. In human life, we have so-called a pyramid of value. At the pyramid of value, the basis is the so-called, we have to earn money, and that's wealth is this underground one. And then you will get enough reputation and prestige. And this is the second one, to get fame. And the third one is once you're going up, you get the power, the authority. But the most important part of our human life, the human values, is the public services. So anyone who wants to be involved in public policy or in this public health should have a mind that the true power basically is the services. When you have the power, you have the more the power you have to serve the more people. And I also learned from Pope Francis. He said that, well, a good leader, anyone who wants to be a public health practitioner or public servant, and a good leader has to be a good shepherd. And it means that you definitely have full of the smells of the ships. In other words, you have to get along with the people very well, and to know what they need, and to know what we can provide them the services. So I think if you want to be involved in public health and public policy, you are welcome, because this is a very good mission to serve people. And also you have to get a very good training of it. And the training is not only from the book, from the class, it's also from your daily practice. And if you have the chance, go to the parliament or the Congress and to be an assistant there to learn more. And then you can go to some other so-called current practitioners to listen to what their advices are. And I think all of these are very important. But I admire you if you already have the thought to serve people through this public health and public policy. And it means that all of you are really admirable, and I think that we are looking forward to your participation in public health and public policy and so forth.
Sounds like very good advice. Once again, Dr. Chen, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. We applaud your efforts to help control the spread of COVID-19, both in Taiwan and internationally. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so finally, I want to thank all our participants for spending time with us this morning and sending in your questions, although unfortunately we weren't able to cover all of them. If you'd like to know more about the Asian European Society Munich and our upcoming events, be sure to follow us on our social media. With that, I would like to conclude today's speaker event. I wish Dr. Chen and all our participants good health and well-being in the months and years to come.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.